Mm-hmm.
There it is. Welcome, everyone. It's Thursday. Brian here, and of course, I'm joined with my co-host, Daniel Payton.
Absolutely.
Right?
Why not? You need someone to ramble incessantly.
Yeah, and like I always point out, I mean, if you can't tell it's Daniel Payton, then you have problems because, I mean, his name, it's right there. You can't miss it.
And usually I have more of them around me, so I have my name all over the place, but my banners are still not all up after my last event because lazy. So only one of my names behind me, except for what's on the books, I guess. So, Brian, you need banners behind you.
I know. Well, I've had trouble in paradise at work, so things have just completely changed. So I've lost the, I guess, acting manager is what you want to call him. So now I'm running a staple store.
Oh, goodness.
Well, not by myself. I can't say that. I have my trusty tech supervisor and print supervisor. So I really don't have the time to be going down to print and telling them, make me a banner, damn it. As much as I would love to.
Yeah.
So, but I will get around to it. I do need one. I will have one for when my book comes out.
Yeah, definitely.
Our book, I should say.
Well, to be clear, yours and your other co-authors.
Correct.
I'm not working on this one. This one you're in that I'm actually not working on.
I just thought of something evil, but that's all right. I'll talk about that later. I just thought of something. And speaking of my book, I'm almost done. It's almost done. I just have to write a couple more pages, and then it's done. It's complete. And then the process begins, right?
Yeah, I say it is a relative term in writing. You've got the rough draft down, which is that verbal vomit that hits the page, and then you got to clean up and make it look better.
Yes. And, as everyone knows, I'm a first-time author. I've never done this. This is my first book. I mean, I didn't write the whole thing. So, but I think I have a knack for this. So I'm very, very, very excited. So, and I know that I'm in good hands, and I know lots of people, lots of authors, publishers, publishing companies. I think I've interviewed, countless people. So I know that I'm in, I know people that can help along the way and see if I want to do book 2 or not.
Yeah, most of them will offer you aspirin and condolences. So.
But to me, it's addicting.
Oh, I love writing. That's the joy. That's that euphoria of just sitting down in front of the computer and putting a story in. Then you go back and read it, and half the time you're going, I didn't mean that, But that right. I love just sitting and writing. I've got tons of stuff that I've written just because I was just needed something to write, and about half of it makes it to the stage of maybe I'll publish this, and half of that makes it to the stage of I'll send it to an editor, and if the editors don't hate it, then that's what gets in the hands of somebody to publish it, and then hopefully gets in the hands of somebody and publish it. That's the next headache. But the fun part is, in my opinion, the initial writing, and I actually do enjoy the editing process. I mean, there's a lot of authors out there that just absolutely loathe the editing process, and I'm not one of them. I actually enjoy it because it's like cleaning your house and knowing in the end it's going to be nice and sparkly and clean and organized and all that. The process is going to have a good conclusion, hopefully. So, yes, we have John Clark's here, Kayla, Valerie, Amber. Where is everybody else? I tried to advertise this around to the author groups and all because
let me tell you,
they would enjoy it.
I blasted this everywhere, and I hate to say that it was kind of my first time advertising it on Instagram, but I did. So I made this little Instagram post or whatever. I downloaded some app on my phone, and I'm playing around with it, and it says, create your own Instagram posts. I'm like, oh, all right, well, whatever. So I tried it. It's pretty cool. I did it. So, and then all of a sudden I get all these, I'm up to 180 followers on Instagram. I don't know exactly how that happened because the last time I checked, I had 12.
I've been posting every day on Instagram trying to boost followers and get real followers. You get a lot of fake people, fake bots.
Well,
but there's
Yeah,
legit
yeah,
people out there. So post good stuff.
I know. I know because I was telling Damien, I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Holy shit." I said, "I got 180 followers." He goes, "And how many of those people do you actually know?" And I'm like, "Probably 3."
It's social media. It's not if you actually know them; it's if they're real people.
Well, most of them are.
When I post on Instagram, I'll post a picture, and depending on what I hashtag it, within I would say 15 to 30 seconds,
That's
I
usually
will
what
get a
happens.
response from a comment that says, "That's beautiful. DM me for promotion at," and they give me their thing. I'm like,
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
real people.
yeah, yeah,
That's just a stupid bot. I,
yeah.
I I've been on Instagram for years. This time I'm really trying to push to grow my audience and all there. And so I really have been within the past 6 months pushing harder. And boy, am I seeing all these robo things out there working on it. And I mean, I guess it boosts numbers, but I want real people.
Hashtagging. I've never really paid attention to hashtagging, but I get it now. I really do because for tonight I did, hashtag publishing, hashtag books, hashtag entrepreneur, hashtag, whatever. And then all of a sudden I got all these messages, send this to so and so because it was like writers groups and pen groups and
Yeah.
all this other stuff or whatever. I'm like, no thanks, but thanks for the
Although,
follow.
a note I'll leave is that a friend of mine who graduated with a marketing degree for online marketing is that they were challenged in one of their classes to do 20 hashtags for every post, like
Yeah.
on Instagram and all, 20. And so, and I thought, oh, that's not that hard until I started trying to do that. And after a while, you're sitting there and you're at 15 and you're beating your head against the table going, there's nothing else I can make out of this stupid picture. And so you hashtag the stupidest stuff, but it gets it out there. So now I hear you're going to get some winter weather. A nor'easter is heading up New England. Are you expecting that? And where you're at?
Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk. No, let's talk about it. So, for those who are worried for my safety, and I thank you so much. 3 to 6. 3 to 6 is what we're supposed to be getting. Anything because I'm 45 minutes to Albany.
Okay.
Right. So that kind of puts you thinking where I am. I'm in the Berkshires, so I'm in the western part of Massachusetts. So 15 minutes to Vermont, 30 to 45 minutes to Connecticut, 45 minutes to Albany, and it takes me if I drive, it takes me about 3 hours to get to Boston and 3 hours to New York City. So that's where I'm kind of at, So the farther you go out to Boston, the more it picks up. So about Worcester, which is in the middle of the state, I believe they are 12 to 18 or something like that. And then when you get to Boston and Cape Cod, that's where you don't want to be. Why you would want to live on Cape Cod, I have no idea. Yeah, it's beautiful, but the weather, I don't want to live out there. That's crazy. The wind is 75 miles an hour out there.
No. I lived around tornadoes long enough. I don't want wind speeds that are that high. I'm one thing I do enjoy about Southeast Michigan is my whole life I didn't have snow like this, and we get nice, pretty snow, and it's not too bad, and they can take care of the roads way better than I could back down south.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nothing like that. We get lake effect snow. Like they were not expecting a flake of snow this past week, but we got tons of lake effect snow, and suddenly we have 3 inches on everything. And the weather was like, it's gonna be clear and no snow. And I look out and it's like 3 inches of snow falling. I'm like, dude, you got it wrong. So we do get that, but we don't get the nor'easters. I'm very glad about that. We don't get anything that far over. So,
Sam Fallon, did you get my stars?
I don't know what you're
Stars?
talking about.
What stars would
Did
that
you get a
be?
rating on a book, Sam, by any chance? Is that what you're talking about?
My stars. Did you get my stars? I don't know. I don't know. My aunt. I would live at the Cape for 6 months. Yes, half and half. That would be smart. Half and half. Sam, I sent you 100 stars. I don't even know what that means, Sam. Like on Facebook or something? Like I'm not sure. Review stars?
You're on your
Review
live.
stars? Is that what that means, Sal? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
No one has ever mentioned stars to me. Is this something new? Oh, on Facebook, right? Because they changed things and adding things now. I can't keep track anymore. I can't. It's possible.
Well, okay. Well, I do want to get on to our guest tonight. Weather aside, because I believe he's going to be affected by this weather too. We were talking about that for the show.
New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel sorry for you, buddy.
Y'all are going to get that lovely snowy
nor'easter.
I'm just looking out at 3 inches of snow and enjoying it. Although they've had way more snow in Tennessee this year where I come from, and they're freaking the heck out down there.
I know.
There's not an ounce of milk or bread in this state right now. It's all in people's homes being hoarded because apparently milk and bread protects you from snow. I don't get that one. Anyways, yes, tonight we have a special guest. He is, I call him an expert in book marketing because he is. He self-proclaimed geek, which is wonderful because that's what Brian and I definitely fall into that one. He has a small publishing house. He has a promotion industry. He has a lot of hats he wears, and he wears some very nice hats. In fact, I think this may be one of the first times I've seen him live where he's not wearing a hat. So I want to welcome on Alexi Vandenberg, which that is the shortened version of his name, from what I understand. So here we have Alexi.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me on. How's everybody doing today? And yeah, we're gonna get hit with the weather too. You know, Jersey gets hit with weather. God forbid. Jersey gets hit with everything. It's kind of a shtick. You have to respect the shtick.
Right.
And in terms of people talking to you on Instagram and saying, "Here, promote it here." These are part of the pitfalls of just online advertising and the media saturated environment we live in. Mm-hmm. It's ever so fun. And I have to admit that there are times that I have to even kind of go to my assistant and go, okay, come here. And I did this about a year and a half ago. I was like, come here, just tell me quickly, what's a tic tac? And she's like, TikTok, Alexi, TikTok. I was like, okay, TikTok. What is it? And she goes, well, it's a new social media platform. I was like, don't we have like 20 of them? She's like, well, now 21. And I'm like, yeah. So I have one more I have to learn. Mm-hmm. But honestly, this is the environment we live in. You guys say I wear a lot of hats, and those hats are not getting any smaller, and they're also getting probably a little bit more complex.
Mm.
Yep. But it's great that you're writing, Brian. I mean, keep it up.
I'm trying.
Actually, it's funny because I am not a natural writer, despite the fact that I work with writers and around writers and involved in writers. I am not a natural writer myself, outside of ad copy, in which I sound like a professor. That's kind of my thing. I sound like a cross between a professor and a carny barker. That's the difference. You can't go one way. You can't go too far carny barker, but you also can't go too far professor. And a nice moderation is always good. But one of the things I always talk to writers about is being around them and being the outsider looking in. I talk often about the 5 hurdles of writing. And actually, I am now writing we're planning on releasing in first quarter of next year a second book, which is called The 5 Hurdles of Writing and Everything That You Do Not Want to Hear About the Writing Career. Because I discovered that as many writers are out there, there's also a lot of writers who don't recognize or understand what lifestyle they are actually choosing.
Yep. Absolutely. I deal with that on a basis when I come to new authors who come to me at conventions and want to hand me a manuscript or something,
Oh yes.
and I'll sit back and I'll start telling them, this is not how it works, and this is how it works, and I get a few of them like, oh, that's great, and then I get a small few, but I get a few who get angry at me like, well, I'll do it this way. I'm like, go ahead, keep failing. So, anyways,
I get handed manuscripts even before I owned the publishing house. I was handed manuscripts as the marketing guy, which actually at a writing symposium after I had been literally on stage with Brandon Sanderson and Kevin J. Anderson ranting about, do not hand me a manuscript. I am the marketing guy. I am the end of the process. I am not an agent. I am not a publisher. I am not, now that has changed, but I am not that guy. I am the guy that the publishers go to after they have purchased the manuscript and go, we bought this. How do we sell it? So after doing that rant, I went to the bathroom. Literally, on the way back to the booth, I had to stop off. And while I am on the toilet, a hand slips something underneath the stall. And he had to have followed me from the meeting, from the panel where we were discussing professionalism and so on. And I'm like, okay, you just weren't listening. Why are you making me be this guy? I don't want to be this guy. Please don't make me be this guy. So I politely said, I was like, I haven't picked this up yet. If you force me to pick it up, I will only read the first page to find out who wrote it, and then use you as an example of unprofessionalism in my next 5 panels. I really don't want to do that. Please don't make me be that guy. And this hand reaches underneath the stall and picks up the manuscript and pulls it back out. And I'm like, you have chosen wisely. And on my way out, Kevin looks at me. He's like, you look like flustered and upset. And I was like, because if people are going to hand me manuscripts while I'm on the bog, you can keep this job. That's my second favorite. My first favorite was actually at a booth with Bard's Tower, which I own. We had Jim Butcher as our celebrity author, and this guy walks up to me because we're handling everything and goes, I have a manuscript and I want to give it to Jim Butcher. I was like, well, I'm going to say, don't hand it to Jim. Jim cannot read it. He's also not, he can't read it. He will only take certain things on things, and it's just not professional. However, over here is DJ Butler, who is an award-winning author and also the acquisitions editor for Wordfire Press. Give it to him. So he walked over to DJ Butler and goes, I really want to give this to Jim Butcher. And Dave looks at me later on and goes, you try really, really hard. I was like, I do. And eventually they get it. Eventually we hope that they get it. But, ever so fun when people hand you scripts, and there are times where I'm like, oh, okay. Now when I do get scripts, I'm like, I will look at this. I will give you my constructive feedback. As a publisher, if you want my marketing advice, I can also do that. However, that's a different hat. Literally. The interesting thing there is that looking from both perspectives now, I find things fascinating. One thing is that I had a gentleman who handed me a book that was absolutely, in terms of prose, brilliant. It was amazing. It was a Slaughterhouse Five Kafka-esque post-apocalyptic horror with food.
Okay.
Brilliant. Like, when I say the prose was brilliant, it was amazing. And I sat there and I read this and I'm like, there's no way I can sell this. Like, there's no way I can sell this. It's so far out there, I cannot possibly get a publisher to acquire this because there is no way I can pull this off. And if they have a marketer who can, more power to them.
Mm.
But it was well beyond my skills. And I said to the guy, I was like, this is absolutely a insane, amazing story. I know you're looking to try and go a traditional route with it. Don't, because they will not be able to sell it. And that's like doing headers into an empty swimming pool. And I don't want somebody with your talent to essentially be doing headers into an empty swimming pool. It messes up with the wires, you know.
Well, we've gone into this already, but
Sorry, I went far afield there.
that's okay. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about was some of your experiences, because that's great learning and great entertainment. But let's go back a bit. I was going to ask you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
And your hats you wear more cleanly.
Absolutely.
So idea.
My name is Alexi Vandenberg. I am the CEO of Rabid Fanboy Marketing, as well as the CEO of Bard's Tower, as well as the CEO of Prince of Cats Literary Productions. The Rabid Fanboy essentially does marketing and development for literary works, literary companies, and IPs. We work with people like Kevin J. Anderson, as well as Eric Flint, Ring of Fire Press, Bane, as well as many other small houses who come to me for advice and consultation, both as traditional, independent, and something in between. Bard's Tower is the only nationally operating literary celebrity experience devoted to pop culture entertainment in the country. We go from convention to convention as essentially the person who brings celebrity authors to your local pop culture festivals. The only one nationally operating. It also functions as a New York Times reporting bookstore. Prince of Cats Literary Productions is the new one, born during the pandemic. It is a non-traditional publishing house built around the idea of a movie studio model, working in tandem with both the author and the entire process of creation of the book going forward. And on that one, we have some of the we have New York Times bestsellers like Melinda Snodgrass, as well as Phil Folio, Hugo Award-winning artist and author Phil Folio, Harry Turtledove, and more.
Yeah, actually, that's how I met you, was here in Michigan at the Michigan Comic-Con in Detroit a couple of years back. The first time I saw the Bard's Tower and you and the other authors there. I think that my second or third time that was Timothy Zahn was at that one.
That was Tim Zahn. Oh God, that was Tim Zahn, as well as John Jackson Miller, as well as was that and Kevin was there too. Kevin J. Anderson.
I was gonna say, Timothy Zahn, I have crossed paths with by just pure happenstance with all the different Comic Cons I do on more than one occasions. He'll be right next to me. So he and I have had this just coming. We just I've made a Comic Con. We know somehow our booths are going to stuck next together until the Bard's Tower. Then you took him from me. So
He actually alternates. He will be at the tower, but he also does shows on his own. Timothy is one that rarely doesn't mind getting his hands dirty, and I see him and Anna all over the place, and sometimes they're with us, sometimes they're on their own, and it works wonderful both ways.
He never stops moving.
No, he does not.
But then I saw the second time I saw you was I was at the Fanboy Knoxville this past year, and there you guys were, and I immediately recognized you for some reason. You stood right out.
I'm hard to miss. Yeah. I built the built the ensemble to make sure that somebody can spot me from across the showroom floor.
It doesn't help you have a giant tower behind you too.
Yeah, no, that doesn't hurt either. God, who was at that one? That was
John Jackson Miller was there, and
Jody Lynn Nye.
Yeah.
Keith R.A.D. Candido.
Yeah, he was.
And Michael Stackpole.
Stackpole, yes, because Michael Stackpole is one of my brother's favorite authors, and in long time, and so I saw him. I'm like, oh my God, that's it! My brother's gonna, and fortunately, my brother lives there in Tennessee still, so that was a good happenstance. So we met there, and that's when we made more of a connection. So
yeah.
And it's been craziness on both ends, but yours more than mine since then. But
it happens. I mean, it's always a fun experience. Much like Tim, I don't like standing still, and grass rarely, if ever, grows under my feet. In fact, if I have to admit, like the pandemic, there, like, so you built a company during the pandemic. Why? And I was like, because the tower was essentially without shows. The tower's not doing anything. I have $80,000 of books in my warehouse, which really was, talk about a heavy drinking moment. Jesus. And then also, you also had, I had to do something with my time. So, like, I'll build a publishing house. How hard can it be?
There's more drinking.
Yeah. I mean, and I have to, I give disclaimers to everybody that everyone learns. And if you're not learning, you're not doing something right. I've been in this business for 20 years now, almost. And I will be honest, I still learn things like TikTok. But, if you're not learning something and the dynamic way that the world currently works, if you're not learning something, you're not doing something right. Or you're in a coma. It's, either way.
Yeah, I helped build an online game during the pandemic, which is what I work for now as my extra income. So that's why I write story for them, and I have a boss who is very technically minded. He's great with the programming, and he'll come to me 2 days before an event and say, "Can you do about 3 chapters for this event by next Tuesday?" And it's like Sunday. I'm like, that's not how writing works.
Yeah. You'll use that word right. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Exactly.
It's funny because I have seen it done both. Like, I see people having wildly disparate opinions of what the craft of writing entails. Some of it is, I get to sit down and eat Cheetos and the muse will talk to me, which I'm like, no. You don't have a muse, you have a mortgage. Okay? Do it right. You don't have to, you don't have to shill your soul, but at the same time, you also, if you want to be a professional at this, a professional makes money. And that is part of this process. The other, I mentioned before the 5 hurdles of writing. The first hurdle is write the damned book. The second hurdle is congratulations. You wrote the book. Now do it again in half the time.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Your best marketing for your first book is your second book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's not going to change. In addition to that, you know, I've seen people who are like, no, it must be, you know, you must be tortured, and you have to write and then polish and then create, and it is so in depth, and you know, and I must be tortured and you know, I'm like, okay, Mel Gibson, come here, you know, stop, let's take a chill, and sorry, let's take a chill, and you know, let's, you know, just kind of get a hold of yourself. Yes, writing should be in depth, but if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. And that's the thing is, you know, some people go out and they're like, I am going to create the great American novel, and I'm like, or the greatest fantasy of all time. I'm like, okay, kids, we don't get to choose that in our lifetime. And I hate to tell people that. You know, H.P. Lovecraft, whom everybody loves, H.P. Lovecraft died practically unknown. You know, we don't get to choose what is great within our lifetime. Write what you want to write what you think is going to be cool and excites you, and that will translate to the page. You know, I make a joke about people who want to be who want to be, you know, do the great American, you know, writing experience. I'm like, okay, if I brought, and is this PG or is this, can I say something?
Brian opens it up. It's okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure before I say it. I was like, if we brought Shakespeare forward in time, and after the language barrier and all that and breaking the space-time continuum, if we said, sir, your plays are the foundation of English literature along with Chaucer, he would have gone, that? It's dick jokes and sword fights. Wait. You make kids read my dick jokes and sword fights?
Cool.
Do they know they're dick jokes? Like, you know, this is, I mean, we do not get within our lifetime to say what is great and what is not. Hopefully, what you do see is a measure of success that will translate on after you. You know, and commercial success, I mean, Moby Dick was essentially was a financial failure. But then you have books that were put out that were great commercial hits that no one has heard of today. I mean, outside of English, you know, English literature professors looking to impress people, does anybody know who Christopher Marlowe is? You know.
Yeah,
sorry, I might have gone far afield on that one too.
No, one of my pet peeves that I have, one of the reasons that, I mean, I don't mind the indie world, and that's what I'm classed in right now, definitely, is the indie world.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things in the indie world that I literally stay away from a lot of the groups that are a whole bunch of people sipping their herbal teas and coffee and telling each other how good they are, and then advertising books to each other, is that they sit there, and if you say, I want to be traditionally published, oh, you're a sellout. This shouldn't be about money. And I'm like, would you tell that to a doctor? Let's not pay him for what he does. Or your car mechanic. Anybody else doing their job, doing what their passion in their career is, they want to be paid. And you'll fight for that right to get paid, but not an author?
Okay. And the first book, well, it's good that you're in the indie world, because the first book that is actually coming out this year by me is called New York publishing is dying, but books are selling great.
Mhm.
I went for a nice non-confrontational title. But part of what I say is that New York publishing is dying, but not in the way that they think they're dying. It is metamorphizing into a different, smaller, independent-minded sphere. Everybody goes, "Well, are you traditional, or are you traditional, or are you indie?" I don't actually like the word indie, because I actually think, and part of my argument is that the market of what is called independent authors is actually entirely separate from traditional, but not in the way that people think. I call independent publishing ADSI, author directed sales industry.
Yeah.
And what it is this: is that if you guys have ever gone to, you guys have gone to a produce store before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've gone to a grocery mart, and you have fresh produce, right? And about 3 aisles down, you have canned vegetables. Are they the same industry?
Not really. Close.
No, they are not. They might be producing vegetables, but they're doing so with different methods of production, different methods of transport, different marketing, different sales, different point of sale. Traditional publishing is essentially building they're building essentially horse saddles, while independent authors, or ADSI, is building horse and buggies. Still same mode of transportation, but they're very different sets. And New York publishing is transiting into a different phase, in my opinion, just due to market pressure. If you look at a lot of traditional publishing, what happens is that there is there are aspects of that industry that have not been innovated since Melville. When that happens, that's a problem. And now the market pressures of the modern age, internet, TikTok, Amazon alone. I mean, people think, oh my God, Kindle and Ingram Spark and Vellum and all of these methods of production have only been with us for about 15 years tops.
Yeah.
That's tops.
Yeah.
That's not even, I mean, that is not even taking into account the market changes that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. So New York or traditional publishing is beginning to have to shift its model. What it shifts into is the interesting question, because also their model of distribution is changing as well. Actually, if everybody wants to talk about supply chain issues, that's only exacerbating and speeding along this process.
Yeah, I know back when I very first started, there were a few publishing companies, bigger publishing companies, that were starting to do POD, and that was looked down on. Oh, those are vanity press. Don't even look at them. And I was like, these are big names. These are not vanity presses. But they're like, yeah, now I'm
Yeah,
seeing that more often because it makes financial sense,
it does
and
make
we have the
financial sense.
ability.
And there's going to be a shift away from the traditional publishing model into, now what that model shifts into is going to be the question.
Yeah.
The other thing is that they're going to change their method of distribution. I explained to very young authors that what you don't realize is that two things. First of all, in most traditional presses, 90% of the books, in terms of profit, are carried by 10% of the books in terms of profit. Only 10% of books in any publishing house actually turn and make their sell through in terms of profit.
Mm.
Now, the second thing is that if you're following the New York traditional publishing model, it is actually technically possible to bankrupt a publishing house by having too many New York Times bestsellers at once. And that is just due to the nature of the cycle in terms of from publisher to distributor to retail outlet, from retail outlet to distributor to publisher, and backwards and forwards. Remember, publishers don't see their money until at best 90 days after they've published. So if you have 5 to 10 to 20 national retailers asking for your books, and they ask for this many of this book, yes, you can fulfill those orders, but you're not going to see that money for 90 days. Too many at once,
you're financially ruined. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Now, going back to the indie, that's great. It's great info. Going back to the indie though, is that I have one self-published book, and I did so mostly just because I wanted to. Because I have 2 publishers that I work with, but they're small publishers. One is very small, but very energetic, very wanting to grow. They are. I've seen some small publishers that come out of people's basements, and that's all they want to do is stay in a basement. This one really wants to grow, so great. Another one, they're a medium-sized publisher, but they're still pretty small in the fiction world. And so I called an indie because of them. I'm okay with that. I'm not in Penguin Press or anything. So I'm there, but then I'll have these snobby indies get on my case and you're traditionally published. You have a publisher. I got so annoyed at one. I was like, okay, well, my next one, I'm going to go kill a sheep and start writing it on its skin. And I'll start hashing out that so we can wrap it up, and I'll tie it in string. And I'll send it to you. How indie is that for you? I mean, I got mad at this person because it was like, just because someone else prints my book, now I'm now violating some unwritten rule. Like, no, I'm sorry. I like money too. I love telling a good story, but you know what? Money's kind of nice.
Well, and that's the thing is that that's we see that in many art forms, but as I have said in the past, nobody does pretense like literature. And anybody who says, like, one of my Mercedes Lackey, a close personal friend, a absolutely lovely person, a master craftsman at her writing, and is utterly brilliant. Puts out about 3 books a year, which in my opinion is a bit excessive. But she can crank out that kind of volume of work. And somebody said to her, they're like, well, you write like that so much, they can't all be good. And she goes, well, sometimes I experiment and things don't work out the way I want them to. But my purpose is to tell a story. Whether you like that story is just like whether you like a movie or not. Some people, I mean, I thought Buckaroo Banzai was a masterpiece. Okay. The rest of the world had a tendency to disagree with that analysis. But there's no subjecting to taste. There is always going to be that model, and there's enough diversity within the writing marketplace that us actually having the false dichotomy of, traditional versus independent is absolutely that. It's false. I always advise people, you know what? Choose what you want to do. Some people tend to go towards that independent ADSI model. Some people go traditional. What I would do is I do the same thing that I recommend everybody does with their portfolio and diversify. There is nothing wrong with a traditionally New York Times bestselling author putting out a novella or a book under their own label. There is nothing wrong with an independent author going out and saying, gee, this book just got acquired by Tor. I mean, is there really any, does it matter? What matters is the story and the content of the story. Who decides to go, well, I'll put it this way. This is what I call an industry question. Because if you ask anybody, Brian, actually, I'll ask you. Last book you read, right?
Okay.
Who's the publisher?
Herself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Most people can't answer, like most normal
Oh, you
readers.
thought I was going to say I didn't know.
What was that?
Most books I don't pay attention to that, to be honest
No.
with you. I don't.
I mean,
You're right.
This is actually why people go, hey, Alexi, we should have like Prince of Cats t-shirts and Prince of Cats swag and Mardi Gras beads. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because and brand recognition. I was
Branding,
like, I would do that for the author,
yes,
but not for the publishing house. And they're like, well, why? I was like, because the publishing house, nobody except for industry people, sit down and pay attention to that, to be blunt. This is, if you're looking for a brand, and what I have always said to people is that your books are your product, your name is your brand. Never mess with your brand. You can switch it up. You can change it up if you're a fantasy author who decides he wants to do a big old crunchy sci-fi physics and space kind of story. Go for it. Enjoy it. Your brand, how you grow your brand is your entire business. But your books are not the brand. Your books are your product. Even when they are big, big chunky ones. I'll put it this way. When I say Jim Butcher, people go, oh, Dresden Files. Yes, but they also bought the Codex Illyria, and they're buying the Cinder Spires really happy and nice. And that's the world that we live in.
It's what my publisher, when I first got with my first publisher with this book series, he wanted to put my name up top big and the name of the book down at the bottom. And not knowing the industry, I was like, no. The title is more important than my name. He goes, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
And now I do have that. I have people when I go, especially in Tennessee, because that's where I started. People come to my booth at convention and go, what books do you have out? What have I not read of yours yet? I get that line a lot because almost every year I have at least one new book that I can put on the table. And they come and ask for what I have new. They're not asking by its title. They're asking by me. And that makes me feel so good. I know that there's not enough of them. I need a lot more of those people. But, I mean, it's a great start. And so, yeah, I understand that. I learned that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. And I also tell people, I was like, new authors, they want to go nuts on T-shirts with their book cover on it. I'm like, stop. Look at my face. Do you see my face? You don't want to make the baby Jesus cry, okay? Don't make the baby Jesus cry. And when you do things like waste money on T-shirts and swag and all of that, focus on the books. The books will sell themselves as so long as you are able to articulate what they are about and find your audience.
One of the things
but you're not going to do that with a T-shirt.
One thing I don't blame the people involved. I blame the audience, and that's like people, especially new authors. They see Harry Potter plastered on toys and cards and posters and T-shirts and everything. You see Game of Thrones plastered on everything. You see Star Wars plastered on everything. So people, new authors or indie authors, or even all range people who don't get the branding is not the book.
Yeah.
Only if you become a $4 billion business like Star Wars can you then slap Star Wars on stuff and sell it.
Yeah.
That's sure. But are you there yet? No. So, sell your name. That's like, I'm changing. I'm thinking starting 2023, instead of just my name, I'm going to try and do Peyton Publications, and everything that's going to be my brand as is Peyton Publications. And I'm trying to design it because I do a little design too, so trying to design that. But yeah, so I've had this lecture before from others who've helped me learn,
and it's a good lecture. It's a good thing to learn, because unfortunately, I mean, part of my crusade has always been to teach the younger authors, because, like I said, like, there are people who get to the, I talked about the first two hurdles, write the book, and, great, you wrote it, do it again. The third hurdle is, I have arrived, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the more dangerous ones that I have experienced. It is the one where an author who has worked hard and is building their brand, what happens is all of a sudden they go, this has been the goal I've got to, and I am here now, and I have arrived. I am successful as an author. Everyone should pat themselves on their back for their successes and their wins. Life is life is tough, so pat yourself on the back when you win. Absolutely. But never actually take yourself into that. I am now an author, because that is that road is fraught with peril. Mainly because of the fact that you begin to think, well, gee, I'm excellent. This is me. I'm excellent. This is my work. How wonderful is it? And when you begin to do that, you begin to lose sight of what you're trying to do, which is sell books.
That, and you also can lose sight of imperfections.
Absolutely.
You start. I'll relate a story at Knoxville. Fanboy Comic Con in Knoxville. I had a industry professional stop by my booth and looked at my books, and most of the time, authors, and I mean, they'll comment on the cover and move on. He looked at the inside of the book and he kept saying, "Your formatting needs work. Formatting is not good." And I wanted to hear that. I asked him to go and talk to my publisher, who happened to be in another booth somewhere, and tell him that, because I've been saying it, but I recognize the imperfection. And the thing is, as soon as this person walked away, the person next to me goes, "Man, he has a high opinion of himself." I said, No. He was right. I'm talking about
that was me.
Yeah, it was you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, wait a minute.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds very familiar.
But that's what you need to tell people, new authors, is being blunt sometimes is the best way.
Yeah, and that's not meant to be cruel. Mm-mm. That's meant to be like I genuinely looked at the format of the book, and you can fix that, and it makes the book look better.
Oh, I know that story. You told me that story. That's him?
That's him.
Oh, jeez. Okay, I heard about that. Oh, okay.
And all along, I've taken it totally as constructive criticism.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's not meant to be cruel. It was meant to be like, for authors. I look at things like that, because craft and the writing craft and building and writing, it's like a muscle. As long as you exercise it, it's going to get stronger and stronger. Keep on chugging along. But there's stuff but it's the nitty-gritty details that we do not teach authors, both independent and traditional. We do not teach them to look at things like, by the way, kerning is a thing. For those of you who don't know what kerning is, it's actually if your letters are too close or too far away. That is kerning. And for a book to have formatting error, what happens is that you're actually wasting pages. And when you waste pages, the more paper you use, the more expensive the book is. The more expensive the book is, the more that eats into your bottom line.
Right.
It is a, and I try and teach authors those things, especially because no one teaches it, and it's an important aspect to learn. People can take. I mean, when young people come to me and they go, Alexi, I want to be an author. I was like, excellent, and they're like, what should be my first step? I was like, your first step should be to continue writing.
Yes.
Your second step is you don't have to spend a boatload of money on it, but you know what you need to do? Go to your local community college and just audit 2 classes. One is a marketing class. The second thing you audit is a small business class. Those 2 things are going to teach you just as much about what it means to be a professional author as everything else. The small business, I have had authors who come into, Alexi, I just made my first deal. I made, it's a 3-book deal, $90,000. I'm rich. I'm going to Vegas, baby, and Applebee's. No. First of all, half of that money belongs to the state. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah.
Taxes are a thing, guys, and the IRS loves authors. Okay, just ask Robert Aspirin.
Yes. Tell me
The other thing is that no, because that might be your first contract. That might be your only contract.
Mm-hmm.
Plan. Don't expect to fail, but don't expect success either. You have to be in the middle and be able to look objectively at your career and go, okay, I have $45,000. You know what? That's 3 books. That's a book a year, maybe. So I'm only making $10,000 a year. Okay, what am I going to be doing in the next? It's time for me to crank out some more books, or not give up the day job quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I tell people a lot. I was like, writing is like acting. It's like acting. There are many successful actors out there, and there are many successful writers out there of varying degrees of success. But there's also the guy who's trying to emote to your cheeseburger at the McDonald's.
Yes. Oh, one of my friends is Harrison Ford. I've known him for years, and he has told me more than one time about how he started in acting, started in his tiny roles he had to his first actual starring role. At the same time, he was building decks in LA.
Yeah.
He was working. I mean, he talked about flying planes and building decks to actually make money, because the acting was pulling in a little bit, but he was making way more money building a deck for somebody.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Also, you have to think about things. Let's adult for a second. Healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
retirement, rainy day funds. These are all things that a small business class will actually teach you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important for you to look at.
Well, investment too. And that's something
Absolutely.
else I've told so many new authors. I said, you getting started, you're going to have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in your editing. You have to invest in your time. You have to invest in where you're going to go. I mean, I pay to go to these conventions. I pay for my own books. I don't, I'm not with a big publisher where they're sending me a box load of books and the publisher just to set it up. Not quite there yet. I have a publisher who's helping me out with stuff, but I'm still paying for this.
And if I might be so bold, New York, the idea, talk to your journeyman authors. You're going to learn more from your traditional and your independent authors who are not your superstars. The guys who have 7, 8 books out, who are pushing it through, they're doing okay, but really we're talking about part-time job money. Talk to them. They're going to be able to tell you. For instance, I have seen many people. I've had 2 authors actually within Prince of Cats who are like, so you're going to fly me out on a Barnes & Noble book tour, right?
Sorry.
No. Well, what about the marketing material? What about, having somebody, build for me my website? No. Well, these are things that people think, my God, I just got signed on by Tor. And by doing so, they're going to take care of my books and they're going to fly me places. And some of that might be the case. I mean, sometimes they will invest very heavily in an author, but you don't bet the farm on that. You have to have a plan B and a C and probably a D.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have had authors who are looking for publishers, and the first thing out of their mouth is this. Well, everyone I look at, they don't market your books. Or authors who are with decent or smaller publishers, like, well, I don't like this publisher. They're not putting anything into the marketing. Like, you market your book.
Mm-hmm.
Ding,
now,
ding.
the publisher will post it. Like Cosby, who does my Dragonball series, they do help. They post stuff. They talk about it. They contact me about events, but I'm still in charge of my own publishing publicity, and I don't care. It's going to be me. And the thing is who knows your publicity better than you?
You are the publicity for your books. And yeah. I will be honest. Also, remember, you are your brand. You are your brand. You are your brand. You are your brand. We do a lot of shows, and honestly, shows are a lot of fun. I also have to be camp counselor during those shows. Especially with like some of the younger authors where I'm like, okay, yes, this is a lot of fun. You should have fun. This is a big thing. It's fun. Enjoy yourself. But remember, you got to be up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning to be at the booth, to set up, build your display, rebuild your display, shape up, and probably have a panel by 10. If I walk into a panel, I'm like, hungover. That is not going to look well on the brand.
No.
And you have to, these are things that you have to, again, remember. Yes, the cosplayer is very pretty. This is not a singles bar. Sell her the damn book.
Yes. Oh, I've seen that.
And these are things that I see younger authors do, and I try and, like I said, steer them into places where they have not been taught this yet. One of the things that I do for writing superstars on occasion, which is Kevin J. Anderson, Brandon Sanderson. It was Dave Farland, may he rest in peace. John Mayberry and others. I actually go to dinner with some of the students, and I set it up as a professional dinner. These are things that you're going to have to learn, because if you're having a meeting with somebody, you're going to have to be able to talk to them, which means that you can't roll in there looking like a rube off the street.
Mm.
It's a business meeting. Yes, I make a very, very spectacular living selling science fiction fantasy books and dressing with a big fluffy hat. That is absolutely the case. I have family members who have literally sat there and go, so what do you exactly do? You know, and I explained it to them, and they're like, and the hat? I was like, it's part of the brand. I go, okay. What they don't see is that when you sit down at a dinner table and you're going to sit there and you're going to have to actually comport yourself as a business owner. And every author, whether independent or traditional, don't kid yourselves. You're a business owner. You're a business owner. That brand, that name on your books is a business. And you have to comport yourself as the owner of that business.
Yeah. I have personally, I've done this for indie authors, small authors, and do the artist tables and stuff at Comic Cons. When I first started 10 years ago doing the Comic Cons, I was just doing the little artist table. But I always set up as professional as I could get. I actually went online and started looking at pictures. Particularly, it was Timothy Zahn was the first person I saw because he's at every Comic Con. I think there's more than one of him. And so I thought I set it up as close to resembling how he would. I felt like a professional, and I go to it and I see all these new authors who have a couple stacks of their books, a money box, a bowl of candy, them and their phone, 10 feet away from it, going.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, set up, put the phone down, and look like you want to be here.
Not only that, but I will be honest. The bowl, the much vaunted bowl of candy. No. Stop with the vaunted bowl of candy. First of all, you don't know who has a nut allergy and who doesn't. You don't know who's diabetic or isn't. You give a piece of candy to a kid, and I mean, I'll be blunt about it. If you look like me and you go, "Hey kid, you want a candy?" Like, that's not the look you're going for unless you're writing horror. You know, that's not the look you're going for. The second thing is that, and I'll be blunt about it. We're all introverts, and I do a lot of training on this with my authors, headliners and mid-listers and newbies alike. I'm like, guys, we're all introverts, including me. I'm an affable fake. Okay? This is exhausting to me, having to do this. I do it because I'm good at it, and I can force myself to do it, but at the end of the day, I go home and I go to bed. But this is what it takes, and you have to be engaging with your audience because we live in what I like to call an experiential marketplace, not a value-added marketplace. We've all actually seen evidence of the experiential marketplace. Value-added is very simple. When I was a kid and my parents wanted to buy a car, they went to the dealer. They got those little books that has the felt on the side, so you could feel which felt you wanted on the book, on the car. And some of it was leather, and some of it was faux leather, and so on and so forth. And you looked at that in the blue book, and you determined what car you could get for your money that was the best value for your buck. These days, you'll find more people turn to their friends and go, "Where did you go? Were they cool with you? Did you like them? Were they pushy? Were they easygoing? What did you like your experience?"
Mm-hmm.
And that is the marketplace we look at. I mean, we work in. Excuse me. If you look at, for instance, United Airlines discovered the pitfalls of the experiential marketplace when they found an Asian doctor, jacked him in the face, and tossed him off the plane so that somebody else could get his seat. And it was filmed, and everyone saw that footage, and they experienced that event with that doctor, despite the fact that they might have not even been there or were not the guy who was kicked off the plane. That was exactly what happened. So when we actually are building our experience, you have to be engaging and be like, hey, how you doing? Oh yeah. Oh, you have 22 books that you brought in a suitcase for me to sign? Great. Let's go with this. I will answer every question you put in front of me, as so long as there is nobody else who needs to get in, who also needs to talk to me. Absolutely. That is part of the gig. And I will be honest, some authors take it in the opposite direction. Like I say, there is you have to be a happy medium between Wallflower and Carney Barker.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I have had people who have been like, hey, you, zombie vampires. You like zombie vampires, right? Like, dude, no more espresso for you.
Candy bowl, take it.
And maybe, like, have you thought about, like, just space issues, man? Space issues. I have had authors myself who I've said, like, come here, talk to Uncle Lex. Don't do that. Don't sell over your fellow booth members. Don't sell over your fellow authors. If a guy says, oh, I like science fiction, and you happen to only write fantasy, don't sell him a book saying, well, this is a fantasy. That's science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it is, don't do that. Because, some books have very, very misleading covers. There's a great book out there that when it went out, it has a knight on the cover, but it is an alien invasion story taking place in the Middle Ages.
Okay.
So, it is. So it is a science fiction story that just has frankly, a cover that should have, a little bit more science fiction-y elements to it than the Middle Ages, but still, that you could swing. But other than that, if it's an urban fantasy book and the guy likes epic fantasy, stop. Think about what you're doing, because if the guy doesn't like urban fantasy and only likes epic fantasy, and you give him an urban fantasy book, he will not appreciate you for it. In fact, he will probably ding you on Amazon or somewhere else for that.
And my two practices that I employ and that I have actually tried to get across to people, other than being active and personal, there at the table, not distance, is I always try to figure out who's around me author-wise, what they write. Mm-hmm. Almost inevitably, person next to me, I write science fiction, fantasy, mostly young adult. Person next to me writes slasher, horror. Person next to them writes only erotic, sci-fi. And so I'll someone come to me and say, I only like horror. And I will say, you probably like, and I will get their name and the book. I'll say, you should check out this person's book right down there and move it along down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I have gone out of my way to learn about a myriad of anime, sci-fi, and other underground speculative stuff that I don't know anything about, never will watch, but they cosplay as it. So when they walk up to my table and they're interesting, to get more personal, I can say, oh, that's from, and I can name the anime. They can, oh yeah, they love it. They want to show me the costume. It took me a while to do this sword they do in this show, and that way at least they don't feel like I'm like, oh, you're weird looking.
Yeah.
So I tell people those two things will help you at a Comic-Con so much.
Absolutely.
Understand part of them and who's around you, and and authors are not in a race. I'm not trying to beat another author.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to get to the end together. I don't. As that's something I learned from another author a long time ago, and that's why I will always help talk about other authors. I will direct people to other authors all the time, because there's way more appetite for books out there than authors to create them. So
yes.
I
And
think
the thing is that what you need to do, excuse me, I'm gonna grab some water real quick. Also remember, there is be careful with how you talk about other genres. I had somebody who once said to me, they're like, he's like, I have vampires in my books, but they're not the sparkly kind. And there was a young woman there who went and put the book down and walked away. And I was like, this is why you don't do that. Because, don't, if you damage or go after somebody else's brand, somebody likes sparkly vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody likes, and one of the things that I coach people on, I say to them, ask people and engage them and ask them, what do you like to read? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll either say, they'll either give you a direct answer, or they'll go, oh, I don't read. I should, but I don't. And then you just pivot. You have a TV show or a movie that you really like? Oh, well, I really like the Mandalorian. Oh, you like the Mandalorian? That's awesome. Do you like the warrior culture of the Mandalorians? Yeah. Well, this book is like all about like a warrior kind of martial culture like that. And it's in a sci-fi setting. It's, a warrior people trying to take back their planet from these evil guys called the Harkonnens, And they go, oh, yeah, that sounds cool. It's like, yeah, it is. And it's all about this guy who, he brings himself up and is essentially the leader of this warrior culture. You'll love it. And they go, oh, okay, I might give that a try. Don't push too hard. But, more often than not, the guy who says, I might give that a try, will walk away with a book.
Yep. Yeah, I learned actually before I got into publishing, before I decided to really focus on this, I spent 7 years working at an ancient relic called Blockbuster. And
I know it well.
I learned while working there because I was the top salesperson for our district, and then for 3 years running the entire nation. I was a top salesperson. I learned from that never to bash anybody's opinion. And what I mean by that is not just them saying, "Oh, I like this." Well, this is why you shouldn't. Not just that, but like if they come in and go, "I like horror." Oh, well, I think horror's terrible, but it's over there. I'm not going to say I love it. It's not my favorite genre. But I'm going to be genial about it. I will help them find it. I can talk about it. Same thing with books. If somebody walks up to me and says, I only like, I like dark horror. I do not have anything like that in my books. But this person down here has, check that person down here.
Absolutely.
People are loving their books. I will never down talk it because it's rude and it's not helping anybody.
And Dan, more often than not, they will also probably purchase your book at the same time.
I've had that happen on many occasions. Or I'll have them go down there and all of a sudden some little girl comes back. My daddy's over there. He said you had books about dragons. I love dragons. Check it out.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And this is an important aspect of good stewardship for the community as well. I had an author one time. He's a brilliant author, amazing. His book is Anthony Dabrowski writes a series called The Demon in Business Class. It's about adults making really bad decisions while ushering along the end of the world.
Okay.
It is very, I will not say it is erotica, but it is adult. It has some very dark themes in there. One time, this father came to the booth and, he clearly looks upset. And so he goes, are you in charge? I was like, nominally. It depends. Do I owe you money? And he goes, no. He goes, that one over there. And he points to Mr. Dabrowski. And I was like, yeah. He goes, he wouldn't sell my daughter a book. And I was like, oh, well, how old is your daughter? And he goes, she's 12, but she really wants that book. And I was like, I was like, one moment, please. And I grabbed the book and I brought it over and I went to page 32 because I know page 32. And I read a little passage and he goes like this. He's like, I was like, that is why I tell Mr. Dobronsky that he is not to sell that book to anybody who looks even marginally under 18.
Mm.
And he goes, oh, it's like, yeah. So if you want to yell at somebody, you can yell at me. I'm used to it. You're not the first. You are not going to be the last in the hour. So, please. He's like, no, I think I made a mistake. I was like, that's cool too. I was like, if you would like to purchase the book and read it and see if it would be acceptable for your daughter, since she evidently feels strongly about it and you feel strongly about her, I would be open to that. But if she comes back by herself, I cannot sell her that book. And the guy goes, no, thank you. He's like, I appreciate it. He's like, by the way, is that a Star Wars book? I was like, yeah, that's a Star Wars book. He's like, is that the author? I was like, yeah, that's the author. He's like, cool, I'll take both. Okay. But yeah, I mean, this is. I much rather have that experience than have somebody come to me and say, my daughter bought this book, and your author was being pushy with them, or your author sold her this book, and this is completely age inappropriate. That in and of itself is a worse thing. And honestly, that's the experience you don't want. You want them to have, again, the positive experience. You want them to say, hey, yeah, there was the guy didn't sell the book, but he was being really cool about it. And he was absolutely right. My daughter should not be reading this book. It's still good, but no. And that's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I had similar experience. I said working at Blockbuster. I was there during the age of the Grand Theft Auto, biggest age. Vice City was the one that came out right about the time I started. And I had so many parents who when their kid would come up and the kid was like 9, handing me the game, when I want to rent this, and I would say, no, I can't rent it to you. And the parent would come in and get so mad at me. I had the other employees that worked with me who would sit there and just go, well, it's this rating, and we're not supposed to rent. But they were talking about it from a business point of view. This rating means we can't rent it to them. The parents get mad at me. No, I grabbed the walkthrough guide of that book, which had very graphic pictures in it. I opened up and I said, because this is in there. Oh my God! And they would take the game and throw it at me.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's not my fault. I mean, I'd rent it to anybody who qualified according to the rating system, but I would not walk away without telling. And I agree there. I agree. I have been next to authors who write stuff I was at a convention here in Michigan, a Once Upon a Book, which is a great little convention, book fair convention. And the one I was at, the theme was erotica. I didn't know that. The lady who signed me up to it, she thought, oh, you're new to Michigan. That's great. You'll be a new author here. I'm selling young adult science fiction and fantasy next to people who have phallus symbols on their table. I'm like, I don't have kids here. If I do, I feel sorry for them. But I had that.
Well,
I
feel sorry for the therapy bills later on.
Yeah. I had people coming through who were just at the convention center in Frankenmuth, Michigan. They're just coming in. Oh, what's this? Books? Okay. And they're looking around all the books, and they come and see mine, and they pick up some of mine. Then they go to the next table, and the person is talking about the book like it's Little House on the Prairie. And I know better. Yeah. And I'm not going to butt in. I'm not responsible for their actions.
No.
Okay? I'm not going to be the naysayer when the person comes back. Oh, you really shouldn't buy their books. I'm not going to do that. But when the person left, I looked at him and I said, you really shouldn't downplay what's in your book, because people are going to get upset. And I know myself. Do not tell them that, because they're going to give you a bad review. Absolutely. And we live on reviews, people. Okay, we have been on for about 25 minutes longer than our normal show.
Okay. Well, I mean, does anybody have any questions that I have not addressed?
Brian, did you have anything?
You have pretty much answered everything that I probably would have asked you. I have soaked up everything. Well, considering I'm not calling myself a new author. I did not write the entire book. She kind of just let me have one chapter to myself because I myself am in the book. So that was part of the challenge 6 years ago.
More than a lot of people, right?
Yeah. So since then, I mean, I've been writing since chapter 10 up to, now we're up to 16. It was only supposed to be 15, but whatever. Bonus chapter. Okay. But no, I've soaked up all the information, being new to this myself.
Like it's a great adventure, my friend.
Yeah. I was always looking from the outside, when I talked with Daniel about his books and every author and that I've had on the show and publishers and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fun ride. I know it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people on different writing groups on Facebook that I talked about this. They were like, oh, I live at this time zone. I can't watch it live. I have a lot of people who are going to be watching this. So they might have people come on and ask questions in comments later, and I'll direct them to you. If you wasn't answered by the show, I'll say.
It usually happens that way. I usually have to email the guests back and with a list of questions. Yeah.
I love that. When will this go? It goes on, I assume, YouTube and everything else.
So we are currently live right now.
Okay, no, I know that.
Oh yeah, Facebook and YouTube.
Once we're done, it's on.
Yeah, it's on there.
Excellent.
Oh yeah,
cool.
So it's on there, and I'm actually glad because I'm going to take the YouTube video of this and I'm going to use it in different pages and say, people, watch this. Just watch this. You need info. This is a good starting point right there for
absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So I'm glad to be on. Thank you for having me. This is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I've talked to Brian in the future. I wouldn't mind doing a bit of a panel on here, having professionals in the industry, marketing, whatever, together to sit here and I'm going to invite more authors to be, or new authors on to ask questions and get that going. So I'm not talking, it'll be a while before we put that together, but I wouldn't mind throwing that together and seeing what we can do to help people. Because I'll give you a little of my backstory of where I started. I started in the bottom of a barrel because my first book was published in 2007, 2008 by a little bitty company called Publish America.
Okay. I know Publish America.
Yeah, new. I helped sue them out of business.
Yeah.
They were frauds, and they just about wrecked me. And it took me 5 years before I decided to even try publishing again because of what they did to me.
Absolutely.
And because of that, I now, one of my hearts to go out to people who are new in the publishing industry, and they're like, do you know Dorrance? Is it a good company? And I'm like, let's take a look. Here are the red flags. Here are the good signs. Let's take a look at that. I want to do that. So I love helping new authors. As I said, my opinion,
absolutely.
Are always we are not in a race against each other.
No, our job is to pay it forward.
Yes.
Because, I mean, at one point there was a little toddler, Alexi Vandenberg, running around, God, that's a disturbing image. Pretty much trying to learn this stuff, and people took me under their wing. It is incumbent upon us to pay it forward in terms of our knowledge and our experiences. Publish America. Yeah. When I actually first talked to a couple of authors from Publish America, they were like, we're doing this. And I was like, that's not how that's supposed to work. Yeah. And so what happened is that what we did is that, there are groups out there. SIFWA certainly has outside of interesting politics, they have a wonderful list of publisher beware and author beware. And they also have GriefCom, which if there is a problem with your publisher, let them know. I mean, I have actually on behalf of a couple of authors sat there and gone, okay, Mr. Publisher, come here. let's have a conversation, because what you're doing is actually illegal. Uh, never a fun. I don't like those conversations, but I can have them, and they've been had before. Ever so fun.
So as I said, that's one of my passions, is to help other authors, because I had people help me. Had
Absolutely.
I not had people step up and help me realize that my view of publishing was tainted by a very fraudulent publisher,
Yes.
that it wasn't all the cesspool of horrible people, I would
Yeah.
still be sitting on unpublished books going, I just like typing on the computer, and that's all I do. So I now actually have 14 books published, and I'm
It
got
is
lots more planned.
writing is in my opinion, and this might be esoteric. It is the holy art form of storytelling, and it and for everybody out there, get your stories out there. We all, just like we are all stars in our own stories, we are also all capable of telling a great story, and get it out there. If it's sitting in your attic somewhere, it does no one any good, because stories are meant to be shared, just like good beer and good friends.
Yep. And one thing I like to relay to a lot of authors out there is that, as I always say, this isn't a race. There are way more people wanting a book than people writing a book.
Agreed.
So,
And I once said to a young author who I hope she takes this advice one day. That she put short-term solutions in front of long-term goals, and her race to get to the finish line, wherever that finish line was, she was doing more damage to herself than she was doing to other people, and it's a shame. It's a shame. And I think her career will do very well, but I don't think she'll have as much fun or as much camaraderie. This is not an industry where you have to beat up the other guy.
yeah. And in fact, this is an industry where if you do, you have a million authors who will stand on your neck.
Yeah,
so
very much.
I've watched that happen on several occasions. Stories. But anyways.
Those are stories for another day.
Yeah. So we'll definitely have to ask Mr. Alexi Vandenberg back on, and we'll talk more. And maybe we'll actually theme the next show, so we'll have more of a guiding point to where we're going with it. This is
sorry, guys.
Hey, no, that's great. It was wonderful.
I appreciate you guys having me on here anytime.
So, anything more from you, Brian? Okay.
Not that I know of. I don't think so. Just the usual. Hope everyone. Thanks for coming on, and
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully everyone has a great weekend. And if you are impacted with the snow, I don't feel bad for you, because I'm going to be impacted. So good luck shoveling or snow blowing, whatever you need to do. But stay warm. Stay
I'll
safe.
struggle through my 3 inches of snow and just make it.
I hope I get just the 3 inches, but I'm used to it now. So that I'm used to it. But
safe travels, everyone.
Yes, be safe, and we'll see everyone next Thursday. That's it.
Yes, and next Thursday, I do plan on having Mr. Tom Nguyen on here. He's an artist and a friend of mine. Oh, he's great. I've met him on so many people. Yeah. And so I'm going to have him on here to talk about art. It'll be a little different. Usually we have authors and author industry people, but next week it'll be art. And although he has books out, so we'll get to see him. So next week, art. We'll have fun with that. So good night, everybody, and I will see you then.
All right.
See you then.